I still hear it when I close my eyes. The crunch of gravel, the sudden roar of tires, and then that nasty wood-splitting snap. My private property sign didn't just fall, it got sheared clean in half, kicked into the dirt like it was trash. Dust rose in a lazy cloud behind a glossy pearl-white SUV with a Sagebrush Ridge HOA decal slapped on the door like a badge. And behind the wheel, Kendra Harlow, the self-appointed queen of Sagebrush Ridge, cruising across my land like she owned the whole county. She didn't even tap the brakes, just lifted 2 fingers off the steering wheel and gave me that smug little wave through the tinted glass. The kind of wave that doesn't say hello, it says, "You can't stop me." And right then, something inside me cracked louder than that signpost. 15 years. 15 years of dragging rock, grading ruts, and keeping that dirt alive with my own 2 hands so feed trucks wouldn't sink, so my horses wouldn't break a leg, so my place would stay my place. And she rolled over it like it was a free shortcut on a GPS. That was the exact moment I stopped being polite. If Kendra wanted a shortcut across my property, then I was going to give her one, straight down. Before we get into this wild HOA showdown, drop your city and local time in the comments and subscribe because you're not going to believe how this ends. If you've lived on land long enough, you stop thinking of it as property. You feel it. Every fence line, every rut, every patch of ground that holds memory. For me, that dirt road that ran from the highway down toward my barn wasn't just a path. It was history, my history. Summer storms would wash it out, and I'd be out there before sunrise with my old blade, scraping, leveling, patching it so the hay delivery could make it through. That road was my artery, my pride, my peace, and for 15 years not a soul disturbed it. Then she arrived. The new subdivision popped up over the creek last year, one of those modern luxury communities where every house looks like the same beige shoebox copied 100 times and called Progress. They named it Sagebrush Ridge. I swear on my life there isn't a sagebrush within 3 miles. But that didn't stop people from paying a fortune to live there. And it definitely didn't stop Kendra Harlow from making herself the sheriff of suburban order. At first, I barely noticed. The car on the ridge, a golf cart drifting too close to my fence, nothing worth losing sleep over. Then one morning, I found fresh tire tracks running dead center down my ranch road. I followed them, boots crunching in the gravel, all the way to where my property line met the HOA's back gate. I told myself it was a mistake. New residents get turned around. Happens. I even chuckled about it. Then it happened again, and again, and again. Every morning around 7:30 like clockwork, a white SUV with chrome trim would come flying out from the HOA side, kicking dust into the air as it barreled straight across my road like it was a public lane. Sometimes it slowed just enough for that fake friendly wave. Most days it didn't bother. Music blaring loud enough to spook cattle, tires chewing my gravel, and then gone, back onto the highway like she owned it. At first, I'd just stand there, feed bucket in hand, mouth half open, watching her. You know that feeling when you can't believe someone is actually doing what you're seeing? Like watching a raccoon steal your dog's food while staring you in the eyes, daring you to do something. That's exactly what it felt like. So I did what any reasonable man would do. I put up a sign. Big, bold, impossible to miss. Private road, no trespassing. I planted it right at the bend where she always cut through. Clean, simple, undeniable. The next morning, the SUV came roaring through again, and the sign was gone. I found it a few hours later, snapped clean in half and shoved behind my hay bales like a trophy. That's when I realized this wasn't ignorance, it was arrogance. That night I sat on my porch watching the sunset bleed out over the hills, and I saw headlights again, bouncing across the field like angry eyes. She didn't slow for ruts, didn't hesitate, just sailed through, dust glittering behind her like she was leaving a signature. The next morning, I decided to stop her. I parked my truck across the road near the bend and waited. Sure enough, 7:32 a.m., there she was. I waved both hands, big motions, no confusion. She slowed down, rolled the window halfway, and gave me that practiced smile, politician smile, like she was about to lie with perfect manners. "Morning," she chirped. "Are you Mr. Dawson, right? Everything okay?" "Not really," I said. "You're driving on private property. This road isn't public, it's mine." She tilted her head like I told her the sky was neon purple. "Oh, come on," she said, laughing softly. "We're all neighbors. What's a little dirt between friends?" That sentence burned itself into my brain. What's a little dirt between friends? I stood there for a second trying to decide whether to laugh or yell. I managed neither. "Ma'am," I said, "this isn't a shortcut. It's a working ranch road. Please stop using it." She smiled wider. "Well, I'll see what the board says." And with that, she rolled forward, tires spinning, dust thrown straight into my face like an insult. The board, as she called it, turned out to be the HOA council, retirees with clipboards and too much free time, all orbiting Kendra like she was the sun. Over the next week, I noticed more of them showing up at my fence line, standing there, whispering, measuring distances like they were planning an invasion. A few days later, I came back from the feed store and saw something that made my blood go cold. Right at the mouth of my road stood Kendra and 3 HOA members holding papers and sipping iced coffees like they were hosting a picnic on my land. I slowed my truck, rolled down the window.
"Can I help you folks?" Kendra smiled, that same porcelain smile. "Oh, Landon, hi," she said. "We're just holding a quick community vote." "A vote?" I repeated, glancing around. "On what exactly?" She lifted her clipboard like it was a judge's gavel. "The board decided it would be mutually beneficial to open your access road for neighborhood convenience," she said brightly. "We're calling it a shared easement proposal." I laughed. I couldn't help it. I thought it was a joke, some HOA theater. But then I saw the signatures, the bullet points, the letterhead, and my laughter turned into something else entirely. That night, after I fed the horses and shut the barn, I checked my mailbox. Inside was a letter. No county seal, no attorney stamp, just an HOA logo printed at the top in a font that should have been illegal. "Dear Mr. Dawson," it read, "the Sagebrush Ridge HOA Board has officially voted to incorporate your ranch road as part of community travel access. Any resistance or obstruction will be treated as non-compliance with community guidelines. Cooperation is expected. Thank you for your understanding." It was signed, "Sincerely, Kendra Harlow, President, Sagebrush Ridge HOA." And next to her name, a smiley face. A smiley face. I sat on the porch with that letter in one hand and a beer in the other, staring out on the dirt road glowing under moonlight, crickets chirping, a cow lowing somewhere distant, and far off, barely audible, the faint idle hum of an HOA vehicle, like a threat. That's when it hit me. Kendra didn't just want convenience, she wanted control. People like her don't see land like people like me do. To her, it isn't soil or sweat. It's a line on a map she thinks she can redraw with enough votes and a confident tone. Well, I wasn't raised to bow to that. By the time I finished that beer, my decision was made.
No more warnings, no more signs, no more polite conversations. If she wanted a shortcut through my life, I was about to give her one she'd never forget. The next morning, I picked up the phone and called my oldest friend, Cole Bennett, the only man I knew who owned a backhoe and an unlimited sense of humor. When he answered, I said only one thing. "Cole, you ever feel like teaching karma how to dig?" There was a pause. Then his deep laugh cracked through the line. "Landon, tell me when and how deep." And just like that, the seed was planted. I looked out over the road again, that winding stretch of dirt that carried me through every season, every storm, every drop of sweat. It wasn't just dirt, it was mine, and if I had to dig a hole to remind someone of that, then so be it. There's a very specific kind of quiet that settles in right before something stupid happens. Not peaceful, not calm, more like the air itself is holding its breath, waiting to see how bad people are about to embarrass themselves. That quiet showed up 2 days after the laminated letter. It was a Friday morning. I was down by the creek tightening a sagging fence post when I started hearing voices drifting across the field. Not one or two voices, a crowd, chairs scraping, laughter, someone clapping like this was a pep rally. I straightened up, squinting toward the road. That's when I saw them. People on my land. Not wandering, not lost, organized. There were folding chairs, clipboards, balloons tied to fence posts, a folding table set up like a bake sale. For a split second, my brain tried to make sense of it by assuming something reasonable. Maybe a school fundraiser got confused. Maybe a church group took a wrong turn. Then I saw the banner, Community Access Vote, moving forward together. My stomach dropped. And standing dead center like she was hosting a TED Talk on entitlement was Kendra Harlow, pink blazer, white sneakers, megaphone in hand, smiling like this was the highlight of her week. I wiped sweat off my face and muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." As I walked closer, people started noticing me. Conversations quieted, heads turned. A couple of HOA members gave me tight smiles like I was a guest who showed up uninvited to my own house. Kendra spotted me and clapped her hands together. "Oh, perfect timing," she said into the megaphone. "Everyone, this is Landon Dawson, our neighbor." Neighbor. I stopped about 10 feet from her. "Kendra," loud enough for everyone to hear, "why are strangers sitting on my land?" She laughed lightly like I asked where the bathroom was. "We're not strangers, we're community members." "And why are you holding a vote on my road?" She set the megaphone down and picked up her clipboard like it was sacred. "Well, the board discussed the ongoing access issue, and we feel it's in everyone's best interest to integrate your road into shared community use." Someone behind her nodded solemnly while sipping a latte. I looked around. "These people don't own this land. You don't own this land." "Oh, Landon, ownership is such a rigid way to think." That sentence hit me like a slap. "You don't get to vote on property you don't own." She tilted her head. "Actually, the HOA charter allows us to make recommendations aligned with community needs. Once we submit it to the county, it's mostly procedural." Procedural. I laughed. I really did. "You're telling me you can vote loud enough and suddenly my ranch becomes your shortcut?" She smiled patiently. "Integration, not takeover." That's when I realized something important. She genuinely believed this.
This wasn't bullying for fun. This was conviction. I took a breath. "Kendra, you and everyone here need to pack this up and get off my property, now." The smile slipped just a fraction. "You're being very negative," she said, "and frankly, that kind of resistance doesn't align with community values." I pointed at the banner. "Take it down." There was a long pause. Wind moved through the grass. A balloon squeaked against its string. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "You're going to regret not cooperating." I looked at her and felt something shift. That night, another letter showed up. Not Comic Sans, laminated, color-coded, official. I didn't even open it right away. I just stood there at the mailbox staring at it, already tired. Inside, it said exactly what I expected. Fines, violations, regional standards, a demand for compliance, a reminder that resistance would be addressed. Signed, of course, Kendra Harlow, president of Sagebrush Ridge HOA. Smiley face. I flattened the letter back out. Evidence, I said to nobody. After that, the watching started. HOA patrols driving slow past my fence, a safety volunteer jogging by with a GoPro, drones hovering just a little too close. They were poking the bear. They just didn't know the bear had already picked a spot to dig. That night I called Cole Bennett. He answered groggy. "Tell me you didn't buy more livestock." "Nope," I said, "but I need your backhoe." There was a pause. "What'd the HOA do?" "They voted on my land." He laughed once, sharp. "When?" "Tomorrow." "How deep?" "Deep enough to teach a lesson." "Say less," he said. Saturday morning didn't arrive with drama. No thunder, no rolling clouds, no cinematic warning. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels borrowed, like the land itself knows it's about to be disturbed and is savoring its last few minutes of peace. I woke up before the sun, same as always, made coffee strong enough to make your jaw tighten, stood on the porch longer than usual, watching fog hang low near the creek. The cows shifted lazily in the distance. Everything felt normal, which is exactly how I knew it wouldn't stay that way. Cole showed up just after 6. His old Ford rattled up the drive, engine ticking like it always did. He stepped out with a box of donuts and that familiar look, the one that says someone else is about to have a very bad morning. "You still sure today's the day?" he asked. "Oh, it's Saturday, and Kendra doesn't miss yoga, ever." We dragged 2 folding lawn chairs behind the hay bales, like we was setting up for a drive-in movie, checked the trail cameras, hit record, sat down, waited. Time stretched. The sun climbed higher, burning off the fog. Birds started up like nothing in the world was about to go wrong. Then we heard it, that familiar low vibration rolling across the land. Bass, the same thumping beat I'd heard dozens of mornings in a row, music bleeding into the property like it had every right to be there. Cole leaned forward. "That's her?" "That's her." The white HOA SUV crested the hill right on schedule. Sunlight flashed off the chrome trim, iced latte in the cup holder, sunglasses big enough to block accountability. She didn't slow, not even a tap on the brakes. The front tires rolled onto the plywood. For half a second, nothing happened. Then came the sound, a sharp, violent crack, like the earth finally snapping back. The road vanished beneath her. The SUV nosed straight down into the trench, rear tires lifting clean off the ground before slamming back. Airbags detonated. Dust exploded into the air in a thick white cloud. Then came the scream, high-pitched, furious, shocked. Cole folded forward, wheezing with laughter. I had to clamp my hand over my mouth just to breathe. For a few seconds, she didn't move, just sat there frozen, powdered in airbag dust, staring straight ahead like her brain hadn't caught up yet. Then the door flew open. She stumbled out, phone already in her hand, voice slicing through the air. "This is attempted murder, sabotage. You could have killed me." She tripped over her own yoga mat and dumped her iced latte straight into the trench. Cole whispered, "That's poetry." She was already pacing, shouting into a phone, waving her free hand like she was conducting an orchestra of outrage. 15 minutes later, the sheriff arrived. Sheriff Tom Alvarez stepped out slow, hat pulled low, eyes tied in that way only comes from decades of dealing with nonsense. He took one look at the SUV, the trench, then at us, sitting calmly behind the hay bales, let out a long sigh. "Morning," he said. "All right, someone want to start from the beginning?" Kendra exploded. "He set a trap. This is criminal.
My car's destroyed. I could have died. I waited until she ran out of breath. Private land, I said evenly. Active erosion project. She's been trespassing for months. Alvarez couched, studied the trench, then straightened. Public road? He asked her. Yes, she snapped. Everyone uses it. I handed him the laminated map. Nope. He studied it, traced the boundary line with his finger, then nodded once. Well, looks like you drove into a worksite you didn't own.
Sheriff Tom Alvarez stepped out slow, hat pulled low, eyes tired, and that way only comes from decades of dealing with nonsense. He took one look at the SUV, the trench, then at us sitting calmly behind the hay bales, and let out a long sigh. "Morning," he said. "All right, someone want to start from the beginning?" Kendra exploded. "This set a trap. This is criminal. My car's destroyed. I could have died." I waited until she ran out of breath. "Private land," I said evenly. "Active erosion project. She's been trespassing for months." Alvarez crouched, studied the trench, then straightened. "Public road?" he asked her. "Yes," she snapped. "Everyone uses it." I handed him the laminated map. "Nope." He studied it, traced the boundary line with his finger, and nodded once. "Well," he said, "looks like you drove into a worksite you didn't own." Her face drained of color. Tow trucks came, then another, then a crane. Nothing worked. By sunset, her SUV was still there, half buried, tilted awkwardly, looking less like a vehicle and more like a monument. That should have been the end of it. Any reasonable person would have taken the loss, gone home embarrassed, learned something. Kendra Harlow was not a reasonable person. The letters started arriving the next morning. Glossy, heavy paper, gold seals, words like notice and violation screaming from the page, environmental fines, daily penalties, demands for community safety easement access. Every single one signed the same. Kendra Harlow, President, Sagebrush Ridge HOA. Cole read them over my shoulder. "She thinks she's the county now." "It gets better," I said. "She's citing ordinances that don't exist." That's when I stopped reacting. Instead, I went to the county clerk. 2 hours later, buried in dusty binders, I found it. An easement agreement dated 1976. Clear, explicit, unarguable. The developers of Sagebrush Ridge were required to build their own access road and were permanently forbidden from using any private agricultural roads, ever. I laminated it that afternoon. Then I drove straight to the HOA gate. Kendra read the title, then the first paragraph, then the second. "This isn't valid. It's ancient." "It's notarized and still binding." She tried to crumple it, couldn't. Court followed quickly. She sued, I countered. The courtroom was packed. HOA dramas, free entertainment. When the trail cam footage played, her SUV disappearing nose first into the trench, the room lost it. Even the bailiff covered his mouth. The judge didn't. The ruling came down clean and surgical. Damages awarded, trespassing confirmed, formal apology ordered. Then the final blow. "Kendra Harlow," the judge said, "you are hereby removed as HOA president and barred from holding any HOA office for 10 years. She stood up screaming about corruption, tripped over her purse, and stormed out. Within weeks, she was gone. House sold, HOA silent. They built their own road. The trench filled with rainwater. Wildflowers grew along the edges. People started taking pictures.
Someone pinned it on Google Maps. And now when I sit on the porch in the morning, coffee in hand, listening to nothing but wind and cattle, I think about how strange it all was. How one smug wave through a tinted window turned into courtrooms, cranes, and silence. Some people don't fall into holes by accident. They dig 'em slowly, confidently, paperwork in hand, until one day the ground finally gives way. And when it does, it doesn't shout. It just opens.